What's more hygienic than babies? Well, what if I told you you could make them even more hygienic with leaves and wax? These are calatheas, known in Spanish as bejagua, or sometimes in English as prayer plants because their leaves kind of close up during the night. There's about 60 species of these in Costa Rica, about 20 of which are only found inside Costa Rica and its neighbors a bit. But a lot of them are popular in other locales around the world, especially warm ones, for their large, sometimes variegated and colorful leaves, and for their flower structures, all sort of low-light understory plants. But one of the interesting things here with this one, Calathea lutea, is that if you scrape off a little bit on the underside of the leaf, you can harvest little bits of wax. Not lots, but enough to be useful, considering these things have pretty large leaves here. I've seen estimates that you can get around 0.7 grams of wax per leaf, roughly. So you're not going to be making giant candles with this, but it's enough to grease a baby's bottom anyway. But this small amount, though it may be, can be quite useful for some things, for two reasons. First, it's waterproof, and second, it's slippery. So for your baby, using it as talcum powder to do what baby powder does, works great, generates less discomfort in your baby. But if you find yourself without a baby, don't worry, it can still be useful. It was often used to cure and waterproof bowstrings, to make baskets, also waterproof them, other containers. You could use it as thatch so your babies don't get wet. And I mean, it's also just smooth, so lubricating things. I mean, on the plant, these waxes have several functions, partly helping keep water inside the leaves, keeping other organisms from growing on the leaves, protecting from herbivores. So, useful stuff for both you and the plants. And babies. This is just a berry you sometimes find in the forest here, usually along the trails. Pleasant looking little blue-black things. Hoping they're edible because I ate a bunch of them already, but yeah, tastes edible. This is a No, just kidding. That would be rather foolish of me. That's like rule number 1 of foraging. Don't go eating unidentified plants all willy-nilly like. No, this is actually, I believe it's Coccocepsalum hirsutum. I'm not quite certain on the species, but all the other options are definitely edible. So, we're safe in this case. So it's got quite a mild taste, like not a lot of actual flavor to it. Maybe like a slight vegetable-y flavor with a hint of sweetness. Fun texture though. It's kind of like it's got a fun crunch. Kind of like it's made up of a bunch of tiny crunchy bubbles. So bland but exciting, I guess. I'll take it. This is a Dieffenbachia, and I'm talking loudly because I'm right next to a river and bad at sound editing. These are one of the more common tropical plants to grow as houseplants in northern environments, but this is them more in their natural environment, and at least a bit different than the usual houseplants I'm used to seeing. Not used to seeing the white stems, but maybe that's common in some places. So these come in a lot of forms, some spotted, some just with solid colored leaves, some with colored stems, some just more plain green looking stems. Lots of variety in there. These are common here in a lot of the wetter regions in Costa Rica, especially kind of down in the shady understory, which explains a bit of why they work so well as houseplants, because they're used to low light levels. And contrary to popular belief, and what I was told when I was a young child, these are not super ultra deadly poisonous if you even sniff them. More just rather poisonous if you eat them. Maybe if you lick them. I'm not quite sure on that, but calcium oxalate crystals and all that, the usual. It will irritate your insides quite a bit and potentially mess with your mucous membranes, might make it a little hard to breathe and a little hard to talk even, hence one of its common names in English, the dumb cane, strike you dumb. But that said, Dieffenbachia related fatalities are quite rare. Apparently the fruit are actually edible humanly, but I wish I'd known that when I was young and we had a Dieffenbachia in the house. I just always wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole at the time. Apparently, though, peccaries, they'll freely eat these leaves. They have no problem digesting them. And with peccaries and their habits, one little interesting nugget with these aren't the only plants that do this by any stretch, but one of the ways these can reproduce is by getting trampled. The stems are kind of brittle, so if they get trampled and broken and split up, those different fragments of the stem will all just kind of start rooting and form their own plant, and so they'll just have it spread that way. So, I mean, way to make the best of a unpleasant scenario. Maybe it's not an unpleasant scenario when you're a plant without our sorts of neurons and pain, but you know, it's a good metaphor, I suppose.